Good afternoon. Well, good morning, Atlanta. I hope we are live. Welcome everyone on another webinar of Monterail. Today we have a very interesting and exciting topic to discuss together with John Duisberg, the co-founder of Cooleaf, one of our partner, and let me introduce also Rafał Rothenberger, one of our Monterail principal engineer, mentor, one of the tech lead at Monterail. My name is Julia Szablewska. I'm Monterail project manager and dedicated project manager in Cooleaf project, and I have this pleasure to lead today's discussion. So welcome. Well, today we have this space, I would say, to talk about Cooleaf's journey. From a startup to enterprise-ready company. It has been a while since we worked together, so we have common experience. We have challenges we pass together. But before we jump into the main discussion, I know that a lot of people watching us probably know exactly what Cooleaf is, and I hope we have in the audience also heavy users of Cooleaf. But John, if I can ask you to pitch a little bit about Cooleaf solution, what value Cooleaf brings to the table, and what is the mission behind Cooleaf.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Julia, for having me here today. I'm excited to just share a little bit about the lessons learned, our story, and this journey of moving into supporting enterprise customers. So Cooleaf, we are a technology. I still put us in this startup category. I know that, you ask 10 people what a startup is, and you're probably going to get 10 answers. But we've been running the company for about 10 years. We're now live in over 30 countries all around the world, different industries, really focused in on how top workplaces engage, recognize, connect their employees with the goal of attracting and keeping good employees. And so we have a platform that serves as a community. This is how you celebrate wins. This is how you, create this sense of collaboration and engagement across your teams in a distributed environment. And so, a little bit about, the why or the value, where, we see the industry or the future in this space is that we believe that in the future, or even now, every forward-thinking company will have an employee experience strategy. So, as just part of their operations. And this is because being able to attract and keep talented people is so important. And, I know here in the US, but I think across Europe, across the world, now all of a sudden people are being recruited away from all over, right? Because you're working remote and they're being offered to pay more. So why is that person going to stay at your company, right? They have to feel aligned to the mission, the purpose, the values, appreciated, included, respected. And if they don't, they're going somewhere where they do. And so we work with companies to help build that strategy. And then we have a platform to execute on that in a scalable, data-driven fashion, which we call an employee experience solution. So excited to share more, and looking forward to a great discussion today. So thank you, Julia.
Thank you, John. Definitely the strategy works, because as I always say, nothing makes me more happy than an email I see with the title "You've been recognized." It really it really helped in many challenging days. But let's just slowly maybe touch our main point, and talk about challenges with turning a startup product into enterprise solution. Rafał is today with us, as recently we onboarded so far the largest enterprise customer, and that recent quarter was an adventure for us, from speaking from the development perspective, but it was also a very important moment, John, in your journey. So if you could tell us a little bit how this change, like what this change brought to your business process, daily operation, and how has the Cooleaf mindset as a company changed once you've decided to move into enterprise sector?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And it's one of the things that we have learned over time, um, is to be very customer driven. And what I mean by that is, you know, building out the infrastructure, everything that requires to support, a global, multi-thousand, the most recent customer was a 35,000 employee organization, right? It requires a big investment, both of time, energy, and money, right? And so before deciding to commit that investment, we want to make sure that there's a contract, a customer commitment, so that we're going to we're going to receive, we're going to be able to receive payment for that investment, right? And so, back in the early days, you kind of, hey, we're going to build, and then they're going to come, right? And one of the things we've learned over time, it's, hey, we can actually close this contract and have a commitment on payment before we go out and build and build and build. And that this way, what we're building, we know is going to directly apply to a paying customer. Okay. So this is just one of the things that, that we've learned, over time, in terms of how we prioritize our product development. Not to say that, we don't have a vision and we're still, doing development work from an innovation perspective, but before we make significant investments, we need to have a paying contracted customer ready to go. So herein lies the problem. So, okay, well, how do you close the customer if you don't have it built out, right? And so that's part of the sales process, part of how you have to navigate that. But then it's hey, you do close it, you get the contract, and everyone kind of you high five, you're all happy, and then you have this moment of silence where you say, "Oh boy, now we have to actually deliver on this," right?
Right.
And so we this most recently, closed this customer in December of last year. We had a go live date of March of this year. So essentially, we had 3 months, or a little less than 3 months, to fully implement the enterprise, capabilities to support this customer, right? And that is a very short time frame. So I have so much respect and admiration for the Monterail team to be able to execute and deliver on this. Some of the challenges that I know that we had to, evaluate. One, we effectively doubled our user base. So with this launch, Okay, so doubling the size of the users who are hitting our system, both web, mobile, right? That's significant. Okay, so that's one just from a bandwidth performance perspective. Looking at each page, what's the responsiveness of each page? All of that from a performance standpoint. That's one. Two, even the UI UX in terms of what that user experience is going to be needed to change, right? So we have functionality within our platform that makes a lot of sense if you're a couple hundred employees. Doesn't start making sense when you're 10,000, 20,000 number of employees, right? And so we had to rethink the user workflow, the UI UX in certain areas of our platform as well. And then the third part of it, which is a little more on the back end, which is just around security and compliance, right? So when we're dealing with this level of customer, when we're working across the world, we have to be able to support different types of requirements when it comes to overall security and compliance. So those are some of the big areas that we needed to invest in, that we had requirements around, and we're able to deliver in a very short time frame. So again, very appreciative of the Monterail team to be able to execute on this project this last quarter.
We were happy to do that, Rafał. So you have a little bit of different perspective, but you also were in charge of the process of preparation for onboarding this kind of large organization. Talking about these challenges from your perspective, what were the biggest challenges in the process of onboarding, of the recent onboarding of the enterprise?
Yeah, sure. So the bigger challenge that we needed to handle was, for sure, as John said, we are doubling our user base. We need to make sure that now we are able to handle all those requests, provide access to people, and make sure that the application is still responsive. So here, fortunately, we are able to deliver a lot. We introduced some auto-scaling setups because at the end of the day, we need to onboard the people, but we don't want to run the costs too much, because then all the new revenue is going to be eaten by infrastructure, which doesn't make any sense. So we wanted to increase the performance and the loads by, at the same time, not going too high with the costs. That's something that we still will be working on, because, well, the time frame was very small, so we needed to do some shortcuts here and there to deliver that. But we're able to make sure that we're able to handle twice the number of people, quadruple the traffic by some load tests. We were able to do a lot of tests with if actually we can send emails, because that was big if. Because even if we are able to send information to our email provider that, hey, we need to send that many emails, how long it will take them to actually start delivering them? And if, for example, everybody, as in terms of company, is on the same email provider, for example, of Gmail, how long will be Gmail processing that emails now? Because there is a lot of possible pain points that can be there that are actually outside of our control. So a lot of tests was needed to be done to make sure that we're able to deliver what we need.
Right. Yes, definitely. Our way of working changed, right? Whenever you have so many topics to cover, and all of those topics have pretty much the same importance, right? We needed to be ready in terms of security, performance. We needed to check all of the options to scale safely. We needed to provide it changes in the features. So just thinking about like this, our partnership and cooperation during last 12 years, am I right over here already? So how this cooperation evolved?
Yeah, no, it's hard to believe. We've been a partner for really the start of our company until now, which is really cool in and of itself. Monterail is our full life cycle development partner, right? And I'd say that one of the things that has been really instrumental for us, and I think this is kind of true for any smaller startup, technology company. Um, there's ups and downs, and you have kind of where you believe the market's going, and you have your MVP, your minimum viable product, and then you start talking with customers, and it turns out that you've got to pivot, you've got to iterate, and we experienced that. We've evolved a lot as a company, and have moved towards where the market's going, where our customers are willing to pay revenue for, and through the partnership with Monterail, we've been able to scale up and scale down the level of resources needed, and that has enabled us to conserve cash when we need to from a budget standpoint, but then to ramp up when we do land customers or we have specific requirements that we have to be able to support. And so having that flexibility. So if we just hired 10 developers, front end, back end, and so forth, that's a fixed cost. We have to have the investment, the budget to support that on an ongoing basis, right? And that's a big risk, right? That's significant. And so being able to work with a team that has this agile model, we're able to add additional resources, and we're able to go back down at some points as well. So that's been significant in terms of the partnership. The other thing that has been really, really helpful for us is we don't know what we don't know, right? And so when we're coming to Raphael and Julia and the team and saying, look, we have this massive customer. Well, we're wanting your insight, your expertise. It's not just, hey, here's a development project, come back to us when you're done. No. We need your insights, your knowledge, right? In terms of how we design the infrastructure, how we design the UI UX, how we are looking, a year out from where we want to go, and making sure what we're putting in place now is scalable to support us in the future. And so having a partner that gives us that level of feedback, that level of insight, that's part of the team in terms of the strategy and the overall thought and design, that also has been a huge value for us as a company. With this project specifically, so we had on the business side, everything's number one priority, right? So we have a huge customer base that we have to continue supporting. We can't disrupt that. At the same time, we have a very short timeline to deliver for this, to onboard and bring on this large enterprise customer. So essentially, we created a separate project team, a dedicated team that's working on this enterprise, project, this customer. Meanwhile, we have a separate team who's managing and continuing to build out and maintain our existing platform and customer base. And having both of those work side by side enabled us to deliver and execute. I think, Raphael, you'll be able to speak more to that in terms of the details. But that's a great example of being able to scale up when the business needs it. Right. And so those are some of the areas that, over the past few years in this partnership, that has really enabled us to be, to thrive as a business, and to be able to manage from a budget standpoint, so that we can continue to execute at a high level. But that's a quick summary about overall, but also about this project specifically.
Exactly. When I'm thinking about the partnership, the first word that comes to my mind, it's support, right? So we knew in December last year, when we were sure that we onboard an enterprise with 35K users, that we need to adapt our processes and the way we work, and somehow find a new way of working, as it was started being impossible to work the same way as we work with startups and with MVP products, and provide the best possible service on the level we are here in Cooleaf. So, Rafał, how do you see this change actually in our operations?
I mean, I wasn't here, unfortunately, when it all started. I mean, it was 12 years ago, so that's a long time. But in a way, I think it's
But you
very
were
similar
here in
to...
December.
Yes, and
You
I
joined
mean,
Monterail.
it's probably very similar to every other company that actually successes and is able to support itself, go from that MVP startup to actually being a leading company in the market. And the thing is, when we start, we have very let's do it approach, and consequences be damned. So everyone has access to everything. We are doing whatever we can. Sometimes we are doing a lot of shortcuts to keep costs down, things like that. We are experimenting a lot. Products changes, requirements changes. As you, John, said, it's all about giving value to customer. So at the end of the day, if it looks like customer will prefer something else, now we need to do some changes. It's good to provide them as soon as possible. So maybe there will be some hack there and that. And then the app grows, the development team grows. And now all those things that before were able to give us quicker time to production, allow us to innovate quickly, now it's become chaos. And it actually starts to slow us down. So, and finally, when we reach a point like now, when we are enterprise ready, then not only we need to somehow handle the chaos by ourselves, we need to actually make sure we are compliant, as you said. And compliance, unfortunately, is not something that you can just check on and it's ready. It's a process that will stay with us and will always need to be thinking, all right, does changes that we're introducing right now, are they compliant? Are we safe from GDPR? Are we safe from SOC2 perspective? Are we not breaking something? Do we communicate that properly to customers? Because that's part of the requirements. Do we have proper access controls levels? Do we log those accesses? Because again, this is now required and will be responsible if something happens. So this is a long process that is still with us, that we're still working on. But I think there is we are able to now work more closely, that's what I wanted to say, and help each other in that, because we need to learn how to work with clients like that as well. And it's a great learning adventure for us as well at Monterail.
Okay, so let's keep this thread, and if you could just share maybe 1 or 2 lessons learned from this process, what would that be? Just thinking about a possibility to go to the past and do something better.
Well, I mean, we need to work more closely. So that's something I learned. And we ourselves as Monterail, we need to be much more proactive. We're no longer just somebody that is, as you said, give us a plan and we are going to deliver something. We need to be proactive. We need to discuss the roadmap. We need to plan ahead with the client. I mean, it's 12-year-old application. There were decisions made in the past that made sense then, and now we are 5 years later and we know they didn't. We need to be able to plan to somehow manage that. We need to be able to take care of our tech debt, to make sure that application is up to date, that we have somehow manageable and maintainable platform, because it has values on business end as well. Because the better the code base is, the more we are able to manage it, the quicker we can deliver new features for customers. The less bugs we will provide, the less likely we are to actually break something related to compliance or things like that. So now we need to actually be very proactive to not only expect what to do from you, but to go ahead and say, okay, but we need to do this, 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 this as well. Be very proactive. That's something that I think we learned during that last 4 months when we were onboarding the client, and we need to work on that very closely.
John, how about you? Maybe let's not focus only on the recent onboarding time, but well, the whole journey from a startup to enterprise ready product. If you could think, it's really probably hard to choose a one lessons learned you would like to share, but maybe there is one particular you have in mind.
Well, so the irony of this is that if we are successful in this onboarding, no one knows anything even happened, right? It's like you think of like, oh, we're gonna have this big partner. No, like no one even knows anything, like because it's all so smooth, right? So, for us, like, we had to onboard this massive customer for us. At the same time, we couldn't disrupt any of the operations of all of our other customers. And, and so I'm so proud to say that we were able to do this. And most of our team didn't even know what was going on. Customer had no idea that, that this was this massive project for them to support it. It went smooth, right? And so, being able to, really plan out step by step, what are the things that we need to do? Give you an example. We were able to work with this customer to phase in the user base over a period of 5 days, right? So it wasn't just, hey, Monday morning, boom, all of a sudden 35,000 launched. No. We worked and created a plan. And so, we went step by step. Okay, what are the things that is going to be doing? Who's going to be doing what? Very detailed project manage this. But the goal is that no one would even know that anything happened. One of the things that is important for us is that we don't want to create custom code. We don't want to create custom functionality for just one customer. Anything that we do, so it's this conflict, right? We want to be customer driven, but at the same time, we want this to be a platform that has consistency, right? That is something that because that's where we get scalability, right? When we bring on a new customer, that they're going to be able to have value from these functionality that we build out from a feature standpoint, right? And so that's just continuing to, push and move customer requirements that's going to support us from a platform perspective is a lesson learned. We will continue to do that. I'm proud to say that we were able to do that, what we put in place is going to support future enterprise customers. One example of that is the ability to do language translation, right? This is something that absolutely, it's not going to be of value for every customer, but for many organizations, they're global organizations now, right? And so this will be something from a platform perspective that makes us, more valuable overall. So, so those are some of the things that, I guess that we had to really be thoughtful about, even in the implementation, how we phase it in, how we make sure that there's no disruption to our other existing customer base, how we make sure that, in that sales process, we're meeting the requirements, the needs of the enterprise customer, but doing it in a way that's going to be scalable across our platform, right? So that other customers can get value from these features as well. So those are some of the things that, that we navigated, throughout this implementation.
Okay, so we spoke about the past. So let's maybe sum up where we are right now. So Cooleaf is close to have 100,000 users, pretty much. Provide solution to more than 100 organizations, different sizes, supporting the HR company processes on a daily basis. So what next, actually?
That's a great question.
What is the direction?
Yeah. So I'd say, so at a high level, so with any startup company, the goal is to create a repeatable customer acquisition process, be able to onboard those customers, keep those customers, and essentially have a machine that is running, right? So we're at a point now in the life cycle of our company where we're able to generate leads, we're able to bring them through our sales process, close them as a new customer, onboard them, and then keep them over a very strong life cycle of that customer. And so for us now, obviously we're continuing to innovate, we're continuing to learn. I don't think we're never done with that, right? But now it's more about how do we scale? How do we really accelerate growth? We know that we know the market that we can go after. We understand the value that we can provide to them. We understand how to communicate to them. So how do we really accelerate? And so the work that we're doing to support this customer from a bandwidth, performance, security, compliance, all of that, that's going to support our scale. That's going to support our growth as we bring on customers more rapidly and faster. So that's strategically the big thing that we're preparing for in terms of the next year, 2 years, 3 years, in terms of how do we really, really accelerate growth. From a functionality perspective, there's probably two big things. One, everyone's talking about AI, ChatGPT, right? One of the interesting ways that we are looking to leverage and deploy this functionality is how we can support managers with their employees. Okay. And so what we hear from our customers is that engagement happens with your manager. Okay. So maybe, people don't necessarily leave a company. They, a lot of times, will leave a manager. Okay. So how do we support that manager in terms of being proactive with their people? So how do they recognize them in a way that's going to be meaningful to the different personalities, the different individuals on their team? How do they have awareness around what type of engagement's happening across their team so that they can be proactive? So looking about how we can leverage AI in enabling that manager to be as responsive and proactive with their team as possible to increase the overall engagement, sense of connection, appreciation, and so forth with their employees, which will then result in higher retention and employee satisfaction for our customers. So that's one area that we're excited about. Another area is around onboarding. And so this is a pain point that we hear consistently across organizations, across industries, different size organizations. How you bring people into your organization, getting them connected up to speed. By the way, a lot of organizations, they're in a distributed environment. So you're onboarding someone and they don't meet anybody, right? It's virtual. So how do you create this sense of belonging, the sense of connection, the sense of community that's all virtual, right? So we're doing a lot of work in terms of how we not only streamline the process for the HR team around onboarding, but doing it in a way that connects that individual to the purpose, the mission, the values, the community of that organization. And so from the AI, ChatGPT perspective with managers, that's an exciting area. How we can really improve the employee experience around onboarding and make that meaningful. That's another area. But overall, it's focused on scalability and growth for Cooleaf.
Rafał, how about our operations? Currently, we doubled our user space, and we know we learned a lot from a recent enterprise onboarding process. So, what are our next steps?
So as we said, we created that team right now that is mostly about keeping the platform running, maintaining it, and things like that. So we probably want to solidify that structure, define it better now that we learned what works, what doesn't after that onboarding, after the last few months. So that's process that we want to introduce. We want for sure work more closely with Cooleaf as well. We need to be better technological partner to come to them with opinions, with solutions, and with ideas because as you, John, said, from your point of view, when we were onboarding the newest customer, it was smooth sailing, but it wasn't that smooth from our end. So for me, there is a goal that I want to make sure that next time we are doubling the number of users, it's smooth from infrastructure and from product side as well, that it's business as usual. We can double, and we'll be able to for support that. We won't have any disruptions. We won't need that, all hands on decks kind of situation to make sure that it works. So that's when I really want to focus our next steps to make sure that working at that scale is something we can do without any issues all the time.
All right. Well, I already checked our comment section, and there are some questions from the audience. I think interesting to address. So maybe we'll just give the voice to the audience right now. Okay. We have a first question. I think, John, that would be a question to you. What was the budgeting strategy up to the point where you won the first enterprise contract?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this is tough. This is something that, Raphael, you may not like too much. So there's this constant conflict, which is, hey, our code is becoming spaghetti. We need to upgrade our code base. We need to optimize. We need to do DevOps. We need to do these things. And I'm over here saying, is that going to bring us a new customer? Okay, well then tell me when it is, because that, and so there's this constant conflict of saying, hey, what are we going to do to drive revenue? And then what are we going to do to, maintain the overall platform and make sure that it can support, our customers, right? And so there's no easy answer to that. I think there is somewhat of a back and forth. I think that, we have, where we ended up from a budgeting standpoint is we needed to have a consistent level of budget, so that we could plan for as a company. And so we basically landed at a certain monthly, quarterly investment that we're pouring into our overall development efforts. Okay. And so from a business side, we know what to plan for. This is what we're paying. Okay. And then on the product dev side, you essentially have to take that budget and you got to figure out how to allocate it to maximize the amount of funds available. And so part of that is going to be siphoned off to DevOps and some of these other areas. Part of this is going to be customer requirements. And what ends up happening is, some of the functionality, some of the things that we want, it's going to slow down a little bit because we have to do some of the infrastructure work, right? And so the trade-off to the business is, okay, yeah, we want all these things, but you can't have them all at once, right? And so we have to it forces the business to prioritize, which I think is a fair thing to do. Or the answer from the dev side can be, okay, well, let's add the budget. Let's increase the budget, right? And so that's how we landed, is saying, okay, from the business, here's the amount we're going to budget for this quarter. And then we can obviously, as we grow, that can change. And then on the dev side, it's figuring out how to allocate that to maximize the funds available. Now, I still will say that, and I believe this, obviously, I'm coming from a business perspective, the priority always has to be on revenue, in my opinion, because that's how. So for a technology, a startup company, revenue is blood flow, growth is oxygen, and if you run out of growth and revenue, you run out of oxygen, everything dies, right? And so that has to be our focus, but at the same time, we have to manage and maintain the other parts of our platform that's going to enable that growth as well. So but that's how we approached it. I don't know if that's the best way, but that's how we did it, and it's got us to where we are here, and it's worked for us. So hopefully that's helpful for that question.
Thank you so much, John, for answering this question. Okay, next one. Rafał, goes to you. What was the biggest challenge in terms of infrastructure when onboarding enterprise customer?
So for me, it was probably to getting know the application, because I was added to the project especially for that enterprise customer. So the challenge there was to learn what we need and how we can handle that. So at the end of the day, I think, learning about the application, the needs application, how it works, learning to why it works sometimes slowly, and when are those pain points and try to resolve them. And I mean, a lot of those was working with pretty tight timeline, because we have about 3 months to prepare everything. And yes, but I think we landed at one point right now when we are not yet perfect, but we are able to stably support our customer base. And now we can fine tune everything to, as John said, revenue is the king. So to reduce the cost on infrastructure and make sure that we can still be stable.
We have another, I think, somehow follow-up question from Rafał, but not to Rafał, but to John. John, do you take part in sales? How have you acquired first connection to become your clients?
Yeah, so no, it's a great question. So I'm very involved in sales. Especially in a startup, you're either building or you're selling. There's not a whole lot of room for anything else. And I think in most technology product companies, no one likes to sell because selling is hard. It's fun to build things, right? It's fun to whiteboard out, design, hey, it's, we're going to, stay up, build this. That's the fun. The hard part is getting rejected and getting, your teeth kicked in because someone doesn't want to talk to you because they don't understand what you're even talking about, right? That sales is hard. Obviously that, I know that Raphael, what you're doing is very hard too, but, so, there is no pride. And what I mean by that is, you leverage, and especially in the beginning, you leverage relationships and you figure out how to make connections. And someone may not be willing to talk to me because they're so excited about what Cooleaf does. They're willing to talk to me because they know me and they're willing to give me time because of the relationship that I have or the relationship that I've been introduced from as a referral. Okay. So especially in the early days, as a scrappy entrepreneur, my mindset is I am not going to die. I am going to figure out what I have to do to get to connections to make in order to make things happen. And part of that is being relentless. Part of that is figuring out how people can introduce me to other people so that I can get in front of them to get their attention, right? That, especially in the early days, I think has been really, really helpful is leveraging those relationships. one of the things that, I'll give you a hack. Okay. We use LinkedIn daily. Okay. And so, so for me, if you just send a cold email or cold call, I get my inbox is stupid. I get so many, I can't even look at it. It's too much. Right. But if I see that you're reaching out and it's based on this mutual connection that we have, someone's reaching out on behalf of Julia. Okay, well, I know her, right? So I'm going to pay attention a little bit more to what this person's saying because this is a mutual contact that I have. We leverage that a lot, right? So the second degree connections that we have through LinkedIn, we'll reference those in our cold outreaches to give us a little bit more of a warmer feeling, even though it's not an actual introduction. And so, being able to get scrappy, being able to just, having discipline and focus, always focusing on top of the funnel, building your top of the funnel always is really important. Not giving up, being willing to be rejected, being humble, listening, those are all important things. But I would say, especially in the early days, but even now, figuring out how we leverage relationships to get additional introductions, to get additional conversations has been a huge part of how we've been able to grow. Now, I'm speaking from a B2B sales perspective, right? So, B2C consumer apps, that could be, that different story. So this is, how I get in front of C-level executives at companies is, being able to figure out how to get referrals, introductions through existing relationships that we've built.
Thank you, John. Well, another question is actually to me, what processes and documentation the Monterail team had to develop to get Cooleaf Enterprise ready from the project management perspective? Well, definitely, when it comes to documentation, we realize the importance of it. We realize how much we need to improve. As John, you were speaking about this possibility on our side, on our side to scale up and down. So we realize that whenever we need to act quickly, as in December last year, we had the goal to be enterprise ready in March. From our perspective, we need to be able to onboard bigger amount of people to our team, right? Or restructure the team pretty smoothly. And this is something definitely where the documentation and good documentation helps. When it comes to processes, so we learned that definitely we cannot operate as one team. And we need to restructure our ways of working and our project structure. Let's say we created the site reliability engineering team who was taking care about the performance, scalability, security issues, topics. But moving on, from now on, when we completed the onboarding process, we know that we need to follow that direction. So we need to somehow divide internally, and definitely what is important, I think, give more ownership to certain team members, and definitely work closely here with our partner, with Cooleaf, as it is super important to understand right now the perspective, the business perspective, the different interests we all represent as an actors of the process. Of course, we have one common goal, which is make Cooleaf the best platform on the market. But somehow inside we represent different teams. We have different roles, so we need to understand how to actively listen to each other and how to like work with each other closely to react smoothly whenever we have another opportunity, another enterprise, and so on and so on. Okay. We have one last question from Ivan. Can we get a sneak peek at the next features you are working on bringing to Cooleaf?
I can share, and I know we didn't plan for this, Julia, but am I able to share my screen?
Oh, that's a good question. So I need to.
I think there's present button next to living, so that's probably that.
Is that sharing?
Not yet. Oh, yeah.
Okay. So this is just a sneak peek on the employee onboarding, and we'll full disclaimer, we're still learning, we're getting customer feedback, on this, but essentially, we went through a requirements phase where we were putting together concepts, for essentially creating wireframes, and that's what we did. And then we took these wireframes and we we did about 10 customer interviews to get feedback from them, and now we're in the process of digesting all of the feedback from these interviews, and then incorporating how that's going to influence our overall design moving forward. But from an onboarding perspective, there's a lot of stats and industry data that really talks about how that first 90, 120 days for an employee is critical in terms of them deciding, do they belong here? Are they going to stay here? Am I part of this community? Is this my tribe? Right. The feedback overall is that the process is clunky, manual, is not conducive for a virtual distributed team. And so, just like all business operations, when we move to a remote hybrid model, the onboarding process has to be reevaluated for a remote hybrid model. Right. And so essentially that's what we did. One of the areas, and I know this sounds simple, but again, this goes back to solving problems for your customer. Excuse me. So our HR leaders would literally have like a Word doc or a piece of paper where, the employee would fill out information about themselves, and then they introduce them to the company. Very manual, very, clunky process. So one of the things that we said, hey, we're going to automate this and we're going to introduce them, but we're going to do that in the community that we've set up and built. And so, part of this is, giving that individual employee the opportunity to basically share about themselves, essentially building out their profile, fun facts, interesting questions to get people to learn more about them as a human, interest, personality, things that you have in common, and automating this process for the HR folks. And the goal is to get this person connected to other people inside the organization as quickly as possible so that they feel like they are accepted, they are included, they do belong at that community. And so, we went through, a process of design, of feedback, and we use our point system, right? So to essentially incentivize people completing these tasks on a timeline, right? And so we have these points that people can redeem for all kinds of things in a rewards catalog, gift cards, products, swag, you name it. And so we leverage that to reinforce any behaviors that we want to see more consistently. And then this announcement gets automatically published into the the organization, the community, for that company. So that's one example, just how we automated. The other part of this, though, is what we call the employee journey. And this is how we can this is how we can essentially kind of align individuals back to the purpose, the mission, the value, the core values of the organization, kind of the why behind why I want to be part of this company. And so, the ability to have a short video from their CEO, that's one of the first things that lands is, hey, we're so excited you're here. This is about what makes us so special. This is how we're making a difference in the world. Being able to understand what those values mean to me, being able to see, hey, here's things that I can do as a next step to get plugged into the culture, the community that I'm now part of, right? And so, we're excited about how we kind of continue to flesh out what we call this overall employee journey. But the overall objective is, again, to automate and streamline the process of getting people introduced into the organization, and then, kind of creating that sense of connection, that sense of community as quickly as possible. And then, we want to continue that throughout this employee journey and always align back to the purpose, the mission, the values of that organization. So that's a little sneak peek. Wasn't planning to do that. So, nothing prepared there. But hopefully that gives folks a little idea of what's to come here.
Definitely, we'll be busy with creating this concept, and yeah, we are excited to do so. I think we cover most of the questions, and actually, the time is running, so we are about to close this meeting. So. Thank you so much, John, for being here, for sharing your experience and, all of the thoughts, and also the sneak peeks of what will be happening in the nearest future. Rafał, also thank you so much for your time, for being with us, for sharing the technical perspective of the whole largest enterprise so far onboarding process. Thank you so much for all of the question to the audience, and to the audience for being with us here. It's not the last event of Monterail. It's not definitely the last discussion between Monterail and Cooleaf. So please stay tuned and follow us on social media, where we'll definitely update you about the next event. So thank you, and on to the next one.
All right. Thank you, Julia. Good to see you, Raphael.
See you too, John. Thank you.